Welcome to Sarah Has Questions. Today we are talking nutrition, and if you're rolling your eyes thinking how confusing, I totally get it. If you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, there's a lot out there. There's mushroom powders, there's supplements, there's green powders, there's everything, intermittent fasting. Good news, we have a real-life nutritionist in studio today, so we're going to get to the bottom of it and find out what our bodies really need. This is a great conversation. I'm Sarah King, and I have a lot of questions. What exactly happens when you orgasm physically? Will popping a knuckle or a joint give us arthritis? What can we learn from our poop? The size of your body doesn't necessarily indicate your measure of health. Yes. And what are your thoughts on that? Cleansing. Do we need to do anything special to our nether regions? In this show, I get to ask all these questions to WakeMed doctors who happen to know everything about everything. Sarah Has Questions is a production of Capital Broadcasting Company and Mix 101.5. It's presented by WakeMed. Today we're talking new nutrition guidelines, and I have Marissa Robinson, who's a nutritionist who works with corporate and community health with WakeMed. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So when I think about nutritional guidelines, you know, I'm a child of the 80s.
Yep.
And so I think of the food pyramid, which had the grains on the bottom and went all the way up to the fats at the top. And then when I was still in high school, My Plate came out.
Yep.
And that was something that had to do with like portions, percentages on your plate. And there's even an app called myplate.gov that can help you out with it.
Yeah.
And Michelle Obama was a big proponent of this.
What?
So let's go through what My Plate is, because we all, I mean, it doesn't matter what the food pyramid was, it was wrong.
Right.
So let's talk about My Plate.
So My Plate was kind of created in like the early 2010s-ish. I think that's when it really sort of came out to the public. Really created as a way to make it easier for people to understand how they're supposed to eat, because nobody could interpret the food pyramid.
Well,
we all learned it, but it just didn't make any sense.
I really liked it because the bottom was carbs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can eat 8 pieces of bread for lunch.
Yeah. No, and I think, carbohydrates are still really important. They always go through ebbs and flows where, we're either demonizing fat or we're demonizing carbohydrates.
Yes.
Carbohydrates are still important on the My Plate, but it just gives a little bit of a better overview as to, okay, carbohydrates make up not just grains and breads and pastas, but they also are fruits and vegetables and beans and legumes.
Yeah.
And so carbohydrates are still important, but we are kind of maximizing like having fruits and vegetables, making sure that we are making half of our plate fruits and vegetables, but also still incorporating whole grains, and then acknowledging, yes, protein still needs to be a really vital part of our plate. Dairy, if we're consuming dairy or dairy alternatives, still need to be really important. And it just gives us a better overview of, hey, fruits and vegetables, super important, but all of these things, we need greater variety of everything too.
Well, my thing in my house is eat the rainbow.
Yeah.
Like if you have a brown plate, you're not doing it right.
Right.
Like you've got to have a colorful plate.
Exactly.
So, and this is also a colorful diagram. So I want to talk about, well, you can see vegetables is the most.
Yeah.
And is that really any vegetables or any off limits?
So no. So everybody kind of thinks that corn, potatoes, things like that, they need to stay away from.
Okay.
Because they're so high in carbohydrates. And that's true. They are higher in carbs than a broccoli or a carrot, for example.
You wouldn't put it in grains. You'd keep it in veg.
Right. So, there is a little variation. We can get into that later.
Okay.
But in general terms, we divide vegetables into non-starchy vegetables and starchy vegetables.
Okay.
The starchy ones are the ones I just mentioned, the corn and the potatoes. So we do want to be consuming more of the non-starchy vegetables just to, help maintain our carbohydrate concentration and make sure our blood sugar is staying stable. But both are still important. Both still have really important uses for us. Still tons of fiber, tons of vitamins.
Okay.
So having both is still great.
I love that potatoes are good for you.
They are.
That's really a gift from
And
God.
they're just the most versatile. They're the most versatile vegetable. I really think so.
Well, and then when I think about fruits, I think about bananas. I mean, could I just eat bananas all day long and consider my fruit done right?
Well, sure. So variety is still going to be really important, just like in your household. You're eating a rainbow, a variety of foods, because we understand that the colors are important because they are different nutrients. They're called phytonutrients that are causing those different colors, coloring the foods, but then also doing really beneficial things in our body for
Like
us
what?
too.
Like what?
So
Like
I think
blueberries, for instance. What
Right,
is so great
right.
about blue?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of food science terms here that I don't remember all off the top of my
That's
head.
fair. You didn't
but
study? You didn't cram for this?
But we think about like tomatoes, for example, lycopene in tomatoes. Or there was a big thing for a long time about how, red wine is so wonderful for us because the anthocyanins in red wine.
Anthocyanins sounds Greek.
I know, right? So those are some of the examples of the types of phytonutrients. And, I couldn't sit here and kind of directly line off exactly all the benefits, but that is sort of testament to, hey, these different nutrients are included in different color foods, different food groups by color, and they have a tons of, sort of antioxidant benefits in our body, anti-cancer. They can help with heart disease, blood sugar control, really everything.
Yeah, and a plate full of chicken nuggets and tater tots. They're not going to have that.
Right. So they'll have some, there's some benefits there, but certainly not all of the benefits that we might get from a colorful, varied plate that does include a lot of different foods.
Well, and I want to talk about dairy as well because I have friends. This one friend, she gets on me. Her name's Danny. If she's listening, she's gotten on me for years about the fact that she always would have low fat dairy in her.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, don't eat the low fat stuff. Just eat the normal stuff and eat less of it. But then I'm looking at the guidelines here, and it says move to low fat and fat free dairy. First of all, they don't taste good. But second of all, like, what's wrong with eating like whole milk and whole fat yogurt?
Yeah, so good question. So the concern with full fat dairy comes from the saturated fat content in it. Saturated fat is found in all animal products, but in greater concentrations in full fat dairy, things like red meats. That's why we stay away from the red meat too. And so we're going to get some saturated fat in our diet. It's totally okay. General guidelines are to get less than 7% of your daily calories from saturated fat.
Okay.
But that being said, higher consumption of saturated fat leads to greater cholesterol, leads to greater risk of heart disease. And so if we're consuming dairy, which still has wonderful vitamin D, wonderful calcium, great protein for us, we should be choosing some of the lower fat options. So like I totally understand skim milk, very watery.
It's the Michelob Ultra of milks.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people would say it's not really milk.
Yeah.
But going for maybe a 1%, which is a little bit better, I think there's a different, like, low-fat milks taste very different than, say, non-fat yogurts, for example. Like, I think people can tolerate the yogurt a lot better than they can the milk or cheese sometimes, because obviously fat-free cheese exists, 2% milk cheese exists.
That makes me sad. It makes me angry and sad.
Sure.
And I can't eat any of it anyway. I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, if you don't eat red meat, is it okay to then eat more of the saturated fat, the whole milk stuff?
I mean, yeah, maybe. I think there's a balance in general. Like we say, red meat no more than once or twice a week anyway. So people that do eat red meat are probably, we do want to limit it in general.
Yeah.
So there definitely is balance that can be struck between what you do consume more of, and serving sizes for cheese and things like that are probably a lot smaller than we might be consuming anyway. So just in general, like, it's absolutely okay to consume the regular full-fat cheese. It's okay to have sour cream. It's okay to have ice cream from time to time, but it, of course, does matter how much we're eating and how frequently we eat it.
What gets me about all these guidelines is the fact that it's like this many grams and this often, and it's like I just want to eat.
Yeah.
So that's why I do the rainbow thing. I'm like, if my plate is colorful and it's mostly vegetables, I'm probably doing okay.
Exactly.
And I know protein's really important. I'm going to get to a question about that later.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference between my plate and the food pyramid?
So I think it honestly goes to what you were just saying, is the food pyramid was really hard for people to kind of figure out, okay, I see I'm supposed to eat more of this, I'm supposed to eat less of this, but how does that actually play out in my daily food intake? And so the idea with the My Plate here is that not only should we be trying to make each of our meals look sorted to these proportions where, the half plate of fruits and vegetables and then some protein and then some grains. But also we can kind of break this down by how much of our daily eating should be fruits and vegetables, how much of our daily eating should be protein, because we can sort of, I think it helps to break it down by the meal. So it's really, really easy, no matter what you're consuming, to take a standard sized dinner plate, try and fill it up with vegetables, try and fill it up with some amount of protein. And then okay, I'm getting a well-balanced, varied meal.
Yeah. Let's say I have diabetes or heart health problems, issues. Is the plate going to change for those?
So there's some adaptations that we can take. For example, people with diabetes, we might be a little bit more judicious with what we say is in the grains category. Because for people that I work with, I kind of tell them, hey, grains don't necessarily have to be rice, doesn't necessarily have to be pasta. It could be, we could say maybe this is just starches in general.
Yeah, like
potatoes. We could put potatoes there. We could put maybe beans there so that we're still getting a higher carbohydrate food that gives us those energy-giving carbohydrates, but that might be a little bit better for our blood sugar because they have those different nutrients.
Because those are simple carbohydrates, correct?
So there's a difference there.
Okay.
And so part of the My Plate is also make 50% of your daily grains from whole grain sources. I always tell people make as much of that whole grains as possible. So the difference is thinking about like a white bread, for example, which is a refined grain, a simple carbohydrate, because it doesn't have as much fiber, doesn't have as many nutrients, vitamins and minerals, because they've been stripped away in the process of creating that carbohydrate, that grain, versus whole wheat bread. The whole grain has stayed intact. It still has all its fiber, still has all its nutrients. And so that is going to be a complex carbohydrate.
Got it. And it's harder. It takes longer for you to digest. And so your blood sugar doesn't spike. Is that the whole idea?
Essentially, yeah. No, that's pretty much exactly it.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Are there things you don't like about the My Plate recommendations? And is there any advice that you give that to your patients that's different from what the My Plate recommends?
Yeah. So there's not really anything that I dislike, so to speak. The guidance that I was just giving about folks with diabetes, I actually tell that to most of the people that I meet with.
Oh, interesting.
Because again, the grains, I think it can be grains/starches. Whole grains are still really vital. They're still wonderful for us. But also, it might not make sense for us to have a grain at every meal. Maybe it makes sense for us to have a starchy vegetable, or maybe we prefer to have beans. And then again, you get more greater variety of nutrients there, and your options just open up too.
Yeah. What if you're trying to lose weight? What changes about your My Plate recommendations for that?
Yeah.
And that's a tricky one.
That is a tricky one. And it is very person to person. I would say, honestly, like that's kind of the whole point of My Plate, is it can be used for everyone, regardless of what they're going for. Vegetables are obviously going to be really, really important for folks that are trying to lose weight. We're getting wonderful fiber that's going to help keep us full, more volume. So even if we are consuming fewer calories, we're still hopefully going to feel a little bit fuller. So really focusing on the vegetables on our plate, maybe increasing the protein a little bit. So we might adjust that dividing line between the protein and the grain so that we're having a bit more protein rather than a larger amount of.
Why does it matter that protein's replacing grains?
Yeah. So when we are or trying to be in a calorie deficit, ultimately the goal, if we're trying to lose weight, is to consume fewer calories than we're expending. And so protein is going to be something where it's really, really easy for us to lose muscle mass when we are in a calorie deficit. But excuse me. But consuming more protein really, really helps to make sure that we can try and maintain as much of that muscle mass as possible, even when we're in a calorie deficit.
Okay.
So you'll always see sort of guidelines for weight loss: increase your protein, monitor really everything else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot online where it's like, I'm supposed to be eating like 1,000 grams of protein a day. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to just be like hanging out with cows and just chewing on the side of cows. Like what's the recommendations? I'm assuming they change as you go through life.
They do.
And are they the same for men or for women? Just talk protein for a second.
Sure. Yeah. So the recommended daily allowance for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And of course, we here over here in the States use pounds, so
yeah.
they do a little bit differently.
We use the king system with foots and things.
So that's the guideline. That being said, and then that's for most adults. It increases a little bit once we get, I believe it's 60 plus. So once we get a little bit older, having 1 gram per kilogram of body weight is what's recommended.
Okay.
That being said, a lot of people, myself included, believe those recommendations are a little bit low.
Okay.
More protein. There's been tons and tons of studies about how much protein can we eat? Is it safe for us to consume up to like 3 to 4 grams per kilogram of body weight? And the resounding answer so far is yes. There's really, no problem. We don't have concerns about kidney health, assuming we have healthy kidneys.
But to say, Henry VIII, hello, he had gout.
Yeah, true.
So like, and gout is from protein, correct?
So a little bit different.
Okay,
not
we don't
my
have to go down that road.
Yeah.
We don't have to go down that road. But I just know that eating meat, a lot of meat, I always thought it was, up until recently, kind of unhealthy.
Yeah. And that's where the types of proteins we consume really comes into play, because we 100% can have a ton of protein every day from red meats and processed meats and full fat dairy. And yeah, that might not be the best thing for us, but that's not necessarily because of the protein. It's probably from the saturated fat.
Gotcha. So you want lean proteins,
right?
And like plant-based proteins like tofu and beans and things like that, and cheese for those lucky people out there who can eat them.
Yeah.
All right. And is there any recommendation that has changed during your tenure in this field that has surprised you?
That's a great question. Not really, but I think that's the thing I think about science is it's not so much the recommendations change, because they don't change quickly at all.
Yeah.
But the trends change. So we think about, it's the keto, we're keto right now. Everybody's keto, everybody's ultra low carb. That's nothing new.
No.
We used to have the South Beach and we used to have Atkins.
Poor Atkins.
And I know they just didn't brand properly.
No.
I don't know what to say. Like,
well, he also died because he had a bad heart because all he ate was meat. I'm like, you were a little unbalanced there, Dr. Atkins. Yeah.
And now here we are back on keto. But
I know. Well, we're actually, it's funny. You made the transition for me. There are a lot of trendy diets out there right now. And top of the list is keto. So from what I've understood, because I read a lot about weight loss and anti-diet stuff because I had an eating disorder at one point in my life, and I've always struggled with my weight, and so this is near and dear for me.
Sure.
And keto, from what I understand, was for epilepsy, correct?
It was, yeah. Original.
And because if you followed this diet, which I'm going to ask you to explain here in a second, you would have less seizures. So what is keto and where is it going wrong?
Yeah.
Or right? I'm sorry, I came with a bias.
Yeah, well, you'll hear my answer here in a second.
I feel like we're on the same page, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, you're totally correct. So keto, it wasn't called, the ketosis or whatever, wasn't called keto initially. That's sort of the rebranding that's occurred. But just being on an ultra low carbohydrate diet has been proven to reduce seizures in children. And so that's kind of the origins of it. It's still very, very successful for that purpose.
Great.
But then, of course, people caught on. They were like, okay, so if I eat very, very low carbohydrates, then I'm going to go into ketosis and then I'm going to lose weight, right?
And at the end of the day, that's all that matters in this world.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Same page. And so then people just got sort of word of mouth, and then people started studying it more. And then, of course, now in the age of social media, we have influencers who are, going on.
Not doctors or nutritionists.
Exactly. Yeah. People that are, only kind of using their own information and their own anecdotal experiences to guide what they're telling other people.
Right. Like it worked for me, so it must be good.
Exactly.
But there's so much more. Like, and even during COVID, anecdotal evidence was going around, but like it was still, no matter how many people told you, that's still an insanely small amount of people versus the number of people on this planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So keto is just low carbs. So you don't eat sugar, you don't eat any kind of carbohydrates at all.
So it's ultra low carbohydrate. So it doesn't necessarily mean no carbs.
Okay.
It's very, very hard to be on a completely no carbohydrate diet. So I think the general recommendations are if you're going to be in ketosis, meaning your body is no longer primarily using carbohydrates as its main energy source, it switches over to using fat as its main energy source, then if you're going to go into ketosis, you need to be consuming something like less than 50 grams of carbohydrates a day.
And how many should you have a day roughly?
For the average person, it's far higher than that. I would say, probably the average person's 250 grams.
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is substantially lower.
It is.
And
and so basically, they consume this ultra low carb diet. They are consuming some amounts of carbs, but they would choose, vegetables, which are lower calorie, lower carb. So they're still getting some of those carbs and they're still getting a little bit of fiber, but really just not much at all.
what's the danger?
Right. So it really comes from just, very little fiber. Fiber is wonderful for our digestive system. And so we do sort of have a lot of concerns about, okay, these folks are consuming very little fiber. Does that put them at risk for things like colorectal cancers or different types of digestive disorders later on down the line? That's a main concern. But we also have to think about where are they getting their other nutrients from?
Yeah.
And because a lot of them obviously are consuming higher saturated fat proteins.
Yeah.
And because they're having this very high fat diet, they will consume some healthy fats, but probably a lot of a greater concentration of those saturated fats too. And so we'd worry about heart disease and sort of other conditions that that might be of concern.
And so is the same kind of true for the paleo? Paleo diet is what is the paleo diet? Just quickly.
So it's essentially like the hunter-gatherer
I'm
diet.
It's like from the Paleolithic. That's the word I was looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love that they're like, that's how we're supposed to eat. And I was like, yeah, people's life expectancy was like 30.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we were supposed to do that we're no longer doing for good reason.
Is that really ideal? Yeah, so isn't it kind of similar to keto?
So it's not necessarily, but it only, it's not as restrictive with the carbs and like forcing the fats. It's just saying, okay, you're only consuming these foods that we could otherwise get from the ground. If industrial farming was not ever created.
They're practicing for the apocalypse.
Yeah,
basically.
I would say that's a good description.
I was recommended intermittent fasting
Yep.
once,
Yep.
and I was kind of insulted because I'm like, I don't know. I have issues with people telling me to lose weight. So
Fair enough.
What intermittent fasting? Talk about that.
So it's exactly what it sounds like. It is this idea where we only eat. We designate ourselves to a certain eating window, and we can only consume calories during that time frame. So a lot of people will do the like 16-8 is the common one. Where
16 hours off, 8 on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So no eating for 16. And it's just basically creating calorie deficit by starving yourself during that time, right?
Exactly.
And then what are the negatives for that?
So a lot of research is being done on intermittent fasting right now. So we'll kind of see. But I think a lot of things we might be concerned about is for folks with some people who have diabetes might experience hypoglycemic instances where their blood sugar is lower than it should be. For those people, intermittent fasting might not be for them because we don't want them to fast if they are in a low blood sugar state. So, but for the average person, it tends to be okay. I would say as diets or diet patterns go, intermittent fasting is maybe one of those that's a little bit better, so to speak. But that being said, it also really matters too, not just how long you're eating, but what you're consuming during those hours.
Right.
So the food you're consuming during that time is still really, really important to get balance.
You mean I can't eat a
variety.
dozen Krispy Kreme?
That's not really going to work so well. That's not really how that works.
But that's what happens when you don't have something. You restrict yourself. You're like, oh God. And then your body takes over and you lose control.
Yes. No, I always tell people straight up whenever I start meeting with them, hey, I'm not the dietitian that's going to tell you you cannot eat these foods. I want you to eat everything. I eat everything. I want that for you. I want you to enjoy food, but we're going to find some balance. We're going to talk about what can we add rather than what can we take away from your diet.
I might need your card after this.
Come chat with me.
I will. This one I think has always been a favorite of mine, the blood type diet. Because first of all, it is intriguing because we do have different types of blood.
Yeah.
As a lactose intolerant person, as a type B on this diet, I have read this book. I'm supposed to eat a lot of dairy.
Funny how that works.
Funny, yeah. Terrible idea for me. So I'll give the shortest synopsis. The blood type diet is you are supposed to eat certain food profiles for your different blood type.
Right.
So what do you think about this diet?
I mean, there's no research behind it. Like, there's really no science. These things always come out all the time where it's personalized. It's going to be for you.
Yeah.
And then you do a little bit of deeper digging and it's like, this isn't personalized. This isn't for me. I mean, you would have to eat a ton of lactose. Like, that's not going to work for you.
I would lose weight, but it'd be painful and gross.
Awful. Yeah, horrific. You'd be so ill.
Oh, it'd be horrible. The Mediterranean diet. I'm a fan of this diet.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Me too. So the Mediterranean diet is essentially guiding your food consumption based off of cultures in the Mediterranean, surrounding the Mediterranean Sea, and trying to mimic the way that they eat. Because there was some research years and years ago about how these people are living longer despite the fact that they might not have as much access to healthcare as other people do.
Interesting. Okay.
So they were seeing some associations saying, okay, well, maybe it's related to the food they eat. So diet heavily surrounds healthy fats. So things like olive oil and nuts and seeds, fatty fish, which they have in abundance.
Sure.
So more so than perhaps we do in a landlocked area.
It's like salmon and mackerel and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they focus a lot on that. They also do a ton of plant-based foods. So lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, beans, more plant-based proteins, less animal proteins.
Yeah.
And they also consume full-fat dairy. So that's something to add on there.
Yeah, if I could eat dairy, I'd be eating so much feta. Oh my God. All right, so I'm going to do some kind of, well, I guess let's just move on to one more diet. Then I want to give you some quick fire.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so many here to choose from. Noom. Do you know about Noom?
I do, yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of the idea of it's not really reinventing the wheel, but it is giving you, like considering like a Weight Watchers. It's similar to a Weight Watchers approach in that you're still kind of guided in, hey, here's what you should eat, can eat. But just like Weight Watchers, it doesn't do the points, but it does say, hey, these options are on the table for you. You don't necessarily have to be super restrictive. That being said, they do still, track your weight. They do still do some of those things.
They give you calories.
They give you calories.
Like, and how many you're supposed to have a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
May not necessarily be super personalized to you.
What bothers me about Noom is that, they do the psychological thing. Like, why are you eating at night? Why are you eating when you're sad?
Right.
And that's all great to dive into.
Yeah.
But what I don't like is that they call it not a diet.
Yeah.
And it is a diet.
It is a diet.
It's 100% a diet.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they lean into the mindful eating piece, which is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
But they're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
the whole point of intuitive eating is to not do the diet
Intuitive
aspect.
eating, oh, man, I wish I could talk to you for 2 hours. I have so many things to say. All right, I'm going to skip a couple of these other ones. Let's go to some 3 quick fires. One,
Sure.
I keep seeing on Instagram mushroom powders. And for like coffee.
Yeah.
What's going on with these?
Honestly, I don't know. It's one of those things that's just kind of crazy and out there. But mushrooms are good for you.
Oh,
they have good nutrients in them. Putting them in coffee doesn't really seem to really
You're gonna
do
ruin
anything
your coffee.
different. It
Yeah.
doesn't say. I haven't tried them. I'll be honest, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really sound that great. If you want to get more nutrients by putting those in, great. But just know that you're probably spending a lot of money and maybe not getting that much more benefit.
Yeah.
Well, you could just go buy a thing of mushrooms
Yeah,
and eat those
just
at
eat some
home.
freaking mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about green powders? Because I see athletic greens is one I
Yeah.
hear a lot about.
Yep.
And it sounds great. All your nutrients
Yes.
in 2 scoops, and you don't have to
Yes.
worry so much. Because it does seem, like I said earlier, you got to count all the grams. You got to make sure you get this in and this in. And it would be nice to just scoop it into a drink.
Yeah, sure would be, which is why people do it. They want
Yeah.
the convenience. They believe that they can maybe not eat as many fruits and vegetables by doing those.
Yeah, just chugging it down.
Yeah, and that's the thing with all supplements is that we kind of understand that when supplements are added to a powder or something like that, our body may not absorb and utilize those vitamins or minerals as well as it does when we're getting those same nutrients from food. Because in food, those vitamins and minerals interact with other vitamins and minerals.
Kind of like beans and
the
rice,
fat.
right? Like beans and rice
Exactly.
together make a protein.
Exactly.
But not alone.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Complete protein. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. And then this one, I'm really curious because we do seem to be a lot on the same page here. Cleanses. Gotta love a cleanse.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. a really expensive laxative. That's a pretty easy way to sum it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you start eating food again, everything goes back to normal.
Yeah. You just lose a lot of water weight, but it's a unhealthy process. You could be dehydrating yourself. And yeah, you're going to cleanse your body. You're going to feel it.
Yeah.
And you're maybe going to feel okay afterwards, but it's really just you've lost water weight and there's really nothing that's going to stick with you.
Okay. And you mentioned, and this is something I've read the book on this too, intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Not intermittent. I'm sorry. That's not the right word. Intuitive eating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of intuitive eating,
Yeah.
and I've spent a lot of time working on that as someone who had an eating disorder where I couldn't trust my body, and I learned to ignore my hunger cues and things like that. So talk about, what are your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think intuitive eating, I use a lot of those practices when I'm working with patients myself. It is definitely focused much more on how does your body feel around food. Mm-hmm. Puts all foods on the table. It is neutralizing all foods. So
there's no bad food. There's no good
foods. They just serve different purposes in our body.
Yeah.
And it gives us the opportunity to eat foods in a way that feels good for us. We're honoring our hunger cues. So we're trying to eat when we're hungry, pay more attention to those.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose it.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're trying to stop when we're full. So it does kind of naturally encourage us to avoid sort of eating beyond satisfaction, overeating, but it also makes sure we're eating enough and kind of takes away some of that judgment that we put on food.
Which is so hard. I mean, I'm so sick of people who talk, oh my God, I'm being bad, I'm getting French fries.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, would you stop and just eat the freaking French fries?
Enjoy them. Yeah,
yeah, they're French fries. They're delicious.
Point?
Just don't eat them every day.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. If somebody wants to see a nutritionist, how do you go about doing it? Do you need to go through your primary care and get a referral? Can I just go in and see you?
Yeah. So it kind of depends who you're seeing. At Wake Med, they require physician referrals just to make sure that all is covered under your insurance plan. So getting a physician referral, talking to your primary care doctor, saying, hey, I want to see a dietitian. If you're meeting with Wake Med Outpatient Nutrition, you can just sign up on the MyChart app. So it's super convenient.
Ultra-processed foods are coming under the gun.
They are.
And I understand that to mean like Lay's and Cheetos and anything that's like, fluorescent colored. But also, from what I understand, a lot of the oat milks and almond milks and the fake cheeses. Yes. And as someone who's lactose intolerant and has no choice, am I going to die?
No. No. But yes, they would make you believe that you were.
Yes.
It is. It's processed foods, ultra processed foods. So the way I kind of clarify it for people that I work with is there are different levels of processing, and there's also different nutrients that go into processing. So yes, some ultra processed foods have tons of added sugar. They have sodium added. They have lots more saturated fat. And so those are the types of processed foods that we would want to limit.
I see.
Just like we would want to limit a higher saturated fat, meat. Meat is not ultra processed, but it's still higher in saturated fat, and we would still want to limit it.
Right. Okay.
But there are lots of ultra processed or more processed foods that, as you said, the oat milk or protein powder, baby formula, all of these are ultra processed if we're going to use their own verbiage, but we obviously understand that these are essential. They have essential nutrients,
especially the baby formula.
Especially the baby formula. There's a million reasons to use them, and so it's all just clarifying, and it's a gray area that people don't. People like black and white. Nutrition is never going to be a black and white thing.
Oh my God, I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for
are so
me.
even keeled, and I just think that you're a great nutritionist.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You don't need me to tell you, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. My mom's told me that a million times. Well, keep it in mind as you surf around the web and surf around social media. If this conversation we had today leaves you thinking that you might want to meet with a nutritionist, well, check your insurance. It could be part of your coverage already. My guest was Marissa Robinson. If you like this episode, please pass it on. Just hit that share button and send it along to a friend. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a 5-star review. It helps people find us. See you next time.